Of course, it is Africa Day, so I can say habari to you.
Muzuri sana, habari yako?
That's all I can say, so I'm going to say thank you so much for joining us. Okay, Chris, let's delve now into the scenario that is playing out in East Africa, and particularly in Kenya. One of the biggest strides that we have seen within this space is basically banking the unbanked. And we know that this wouldn't have been possible without a lot of the banks teaming up with the telecommunications players in the industry and in Kenya. Tell us about where we stand right now, and when we're looking at growth of over 800% by September this year, those are astronomical numbers.
Yes, being Africa Day, it's a fantastic thing to be here today, and definitely Kenya is leading the way as becoming the ICT hub for sub-Saharan Africa. And in terms of mobile banking, or rather banking the unbanked, then we're looking at a situation where you have over 18 million mobile subscribers, and out of which you have almost half of them, about 8 million, having a mobile wallet or a mobile payment system on their mobile phones. And so this is a fantastic innovation which allows people within Kenya and very soon within the region to be able to transact without having a bank account.
When do you see the subscriber base in Kenya reaching 100% and reaching even over that 100% level? We know that we're very close to full penetration, but still have a lot of strides to see going forward before we can reach those numbers.
I believe within the next 3 years, you will have a situation where we will be over 100%, because most people have two mobile numbers, and so therefore you can assume that they'll have two mobile money accounts on both phones. This is because obviously there's competition between networks, and that means that sometimes, just like you'll have two normal bank accounts, you'll have two mobile phones, and so we will see that number reaching over 120% of whoever has a mobile phone.
With regards to the software that we've been seeing, we've also seen quite a lot of strides, and this is obviously very pertinent to Africa growth. And again, we allude to the banking, the unbanked, the e-wallets that you were alluding to, and a lot of the accounts that are teaming up with the banks as well. Are we seeing us being pioneers within the space, or are we merely importing software?
We're definitely pioneers, because the kind of applications or the kind of innovations that we're seeing coming out of the East African region and Kenya in specific is definitely new things. Obviously, you can't say nothing is copied or nothing is being adapted or adopted to suit this region, but definitely there's a lot of pioneering technology or pioneering software which is coming out of East Africa.
Going forward, I mean, when we look at the infrastructure scenario, we know that a lot of South African companies are operating in the East African region, and we keep hearing the same tune that margins are being squeezed, competition is very rife, we're seeing incredible growth rates going forward. Do you think we could see stabilizations with regards to this, or do you think it's going to be the name of the game where we see a lot of competitors coming in and bringing down the costs, and of course this benefiting ultimately the end consumer?
The name of the game is good competition. The factors, or what we're seeing, is massive price competition, massive uptake of better quality. The South African companies in East Africa are doing well, they're growing, but everybody knows that this is going to be a very thin margin industry, and with massive amounts of competition. The name of the game is going to be service and quality. Those are the two things that are going to win the war.
Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned the war, the price war that is currently going on. We know that Safaricom has been up in arms with this. We know that the regulator has been involved, Zain and Bati under the spotlight as well. Do you think that these kind of levels are sustainable? Because there's one big problem that we do see in Africa as a whole is infrastructure rollout. And of course, the input costs to that means that at the end of the day, some of that needs to be passed on to the consumer.
Well, for now, if we look at it from three stakeholder levels, the government stands to lose a little bit, or a bit of revenue from taxes. If you look at it from a consumer point of view, well, the consumers are definitely smiling all the way to the bank, or rather all the way onto their phones or onto their computers. The third stakeholder obviously are the companies who are trying to obviously give a good profit. And the companies are going to have to innovate or change their business models in order to make good profits. And it's all around between the government, the end users, and the companies. We're going to have to strike a balance so that it's sustainable.
Another big headwind that could be facing the whole of the region, of course, we know that fiber has been under the spotlight. Again, a very expensive exercise, but that just really means that we have more connectivity to the rest of the world as well. What kind of challenges do you foresee within this space, or do you think that the opportunities outweigh some of the costs that could arise from this?
The opportunities definitely outweigh the costs. Fiber, having 3 different cables coming into Kenya or East Africa is definitely one of the best things that has ever happened in terms of ICT and telecom growth for this region. You are going to see the leveraging of these cables and a lot of profitability coming from it within the next 3 to 5 years. In the short term, it might look like there's a lot of, the cost is high, but in the medium and long term, we're going to see a lot of massive improvements. There's job creations, there's a lot of innovation like we've seen in terms of e-wallets and mobile money, and that is the way to go. So it is it's a blessing, and it's definitely a good thing for Africa and East Africa in specific.
The virtual aspect has also been a fantastic thing that we've seen over the past few months, in particular coming out of Kenya as well. Virtual boardrooms also top of the agenda, and this of course bridging a lot of the challenges that one faced before, where you literally had to get into an aeroplane and fly to a destination in Africa. Has this also assisted the overall corporate environment, would you say?
100%. Telepresence, teleconferencing, video conferencing, all of that is now highly accessible and available. And what it means is that as opposed to moving even across your own country to go for meetings within other regions, you can stay in your corporate headquarters and literally reach out to all your branches, whether they be in the country, the region, or in Africa. I think a lot of money and time and lives have been also lost in transportation of people between countries. And so therefore, with telecom, we're being able to bridge this digital divide, and we're able to have multinationals and corporates do what they have to do without having to move, which is, it's exciting. It's exciting times. Definitely.
And one also thing that's really exciting at this point is it seems that the rest of the continent has leapfrogged the copper cables that we're using perhaps here in South Africa for internet access. As I mentioned in the introduction, that we're seeing mobile internet subscribers increasing quite dramatically, and we know that Access Kenya is on the front line of that. You were talking about squeezed margins going forward. What are you doing to ensure that you do not lose market share, that you grow market share in a very competitive environment?
I believe a lot of, from an Access Kenya perspective, a lot of what we've done is 2009 and 2010, we spent a lot of time laying infrastructure, fiber optics to be specific. And right now we're focusing on sweating those assets. We're doing very little infrastructure development this year and next year, but what you're going to see is massive growth of our top line, which will immediately affect our bottom line because there's not very much cost that you're going to see adding on to the company moving forward. In terms of the industry, we're looking at growth in ICT in general in Kenya. We're looking at specifically when it comes to the data market, massive amounts of growth because a lot of people now understand the value of having good data quality, data services or broadband, and more importantly, how to leverage it to make profits for their company. So we're in a growth market, and definitely with a good competition, we are right on top of it because our quality of service and our niche segment that we're giving services to appreciate what we do, and they feel our prices are very good and competitive.